I never believed the stories about the Manananggal, not really. I grew up in a place where old folks would whisper about them, where neighbors would warn kids not to stay out too late after the sun went down. To me, they were just spooky campfire tales, things people made up to keep children in line. I'd laugh whenever I heard them. A monster that splits in half and flies around looking for victims? It sounded ridiculous. I laughed at those stories, until one night when it followed me home. That was the night I stopped laughing. It started with a sound, the sound of wings. But these weren't bird wings, and they definitely weren't bat wings. They were heavy, wet. It was a horrible, tearing sound, like thick, leathery skin ripping through the air, and it was coming from somewhere right above me. This all happened in a small, remote town, right on the edge of sprawling fields. We didn't have many streetlights out there, so once the sun set, your only light was the moon and whatever stars were brave enough to peek through the clouds. I was walking home late, much later than I should have been. I had my headphones in, music blasting, trying to ignore the darkness around me. My phone was almost dead, its screen flickering with the last bar of battery. And that's when the world just stopped. Everything went completely silent. The usual night sounds, the chirping crickets, the distant barking of neighborhood dogs, they all vanished. It was a heavy, suffocating silence. And then I heard it. Teek, teek, teek. It was a strange, rhythmic clicking sound. At first, it sounded like it was miles away, carried on the wind. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying than the sound itself. I knew, deep in my gut, that something was wrong. I felt it before I saw anything. The air around me grew suddenly cold, a damp chill that went straight to my bones. And then the smell hit me. It was a coppery, metallic smell, like rust and old blood. A foul, sickening odor that made my stomach turn. Against my better judgment, I looked up, and I swear, I wish I hadn't. For the rest of my life, I will wish I had just kept my head down and ran. Something was moving across the face of the full moon. It wasn't flying smoothly like a bird. It was jerky, unnatural, like it was dragging itself through the sky with immense effort. I froze, my feet rooted to the spot. And then the moonlight hit it just right, and I saw it clearly. It was a woman's upper body. Just the torso, arms, and head. There were no legs. Instead, giant, leathery wings stretched out from her back. Her eyes were like black pits, shining in the moonlight. And there was something else, something long and grotesque hanging down from her severed waist, writhing and moving as if it were alive. I tried to tell myself to run. I screamed it inside my head, run! But my body wouldn't listen. I was paralyzed by a fear so pure and absolute that it felt like my blood had turned to ice. Her head turned slowly, mechanically, until her dark eyes locked onto mine. And then she smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just found its prey. It was a hungry smile. Her tongue, impossibly long and thin like a whip, slid out from between her lips, tasting the air, searching for me. That's what finally broke the spell. I ran. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. I didn't dare look back. I just focused on the dirt path in front of me, my lungs burning, my legs screaming. But I could hear her. I could hear the wet, tearing sound of her wings beating behind me, getting closer faster. The teek-teek-teek sound growing louder with every frantic heartbeat. I finally reached my house, fumbling with the keys, my hands shaking so badly I could barely fit one into the lock. I burst through the door and slammed it shut, twisting every lock I could find. I leaned against the door, panting, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure she could hear it from outside. The house was dark and quiet. I thought I was safe, and then I heard it. A slow, deliberate scratching on the roof. Scratch, scrape, scratch. It sounded careful, like she was testing the structure. Listening, I remembered something my grandmother used to say, a chilling piece of folklore I'd always dismissed. If you hear the teek-teek sound far away, she'd said, it means the Manananggal is close. But if it gets quiet, it means it's right above you. The scratching stopped, and the world went silent again. The smell returned, stronger this time, seeping through the walls. That awful smell of rot and rust. Then I heard breathing. It wasn't mine. It was a slow, raspy inhale and exhale coming from somewhere inside the room. I turned my head so slowly, afraid of what I would see, and there she was, outside my bedroom window. Her face was pressed against the glass, but she was upside down. Her long, black hair hung down, framing a face twisted in a nightmarish grin. Her black eyes stared straight into mine, unblinking, full of a cold, ancient hunger. Her long, thin tongue tapped against the window pane. Teek, teek, teek. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I couldn't move. I was trapped, a fly in a jar, with the monster staring in. And then, something made her recoil. She hissed, a venomous, furious sound. She pulled her face away from the glass so fast it was a blur. The reason: garlic. I had completely forgotten. Earlier that day, my aunt had come over and hung fresh braids of garlic above all the windows and doors. An old superstition she swore by. The creature outside shrieked in pain and fury. Her leathery wings beat against the house, shaking the walls. It was a chaotic storm of flapping and screaming. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. She was gone. The only thing left was the ringing in my ears and the suffocating silence of the night. The next morning, I was almost convinced it had all been a terrible nightmare. But when I went outside, I saw the deep scratches all over the roof tiles. A few houses down, one of our neighbors found all his chickens dead, their bodies drained of blood. Later that day, an old man who lived near the edge of the woods claimed he saw something horrifying near the large banyan trees, a woman's lower body, from the waist down, just standing there, waiting. The village elders came. They didn't ask questions. They just burned the entire area with salt and blessed ash. No one ever spoke about what happened that night again. But I know what I saw, because sometimes, when the wind is just right, I can still hear the faint sound of wings in the distance. And now, I never, ever laugh at the old stories. So if you think legends aren't real, just stories to scare children, ask yourself this. Why do so many villages in the Philippines still hang garlic on their windows? And why, even now, does no one walk home alone when the moon is full? Thanks for watching. If you have a story of your own, share it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more true encounters.